House Democrats and one Republican ramping up impeachment calls after hearing from former special counsel Robert Mueller this week. Republican House Judiciary Committee member Tom McClintock joining us now. So what did you think of Mr. Mueller's statement?
I thought it was pettifoggery. Pettifogger is an attorney whose tactics are petty, underhanded, and disreputable, or someone who quibbles over trivial matters. That describes Mueller's statement to a T. We gave him and his team $25 million and 22 months to investigate this monstrous lie that the president was a traitor and was an agent of a hostile foreign government. And after all of that time, one of the most partisan investigative teams ever assembled, with some of the most abusive prosecutorial tactics I've ever seen, they came up with nothing. So now that that has been laid bare, they have to come up with a new lie, and that's obstruction. Well, good luck proving obstruction when there was no underlying crime. The president gave them every document requested, over 1 million documents turned over, and even waived attorney-client privilege and executive privilege to allow Don McGahn to testify for 30 hours. Well,
there's also a question of how they put the report together. Of course, a lot of Democrats have been poring over the report, trying to find any evidence that the president is guilty of something. But Republicans are doing the same, and Devin Nunes used to be head of the Judiciary, the position that Jerry Nadler now has.
Actually, oversight.
Oh, oversight. Forgive me. You're right. But Devin Nunes found that one of the references made in the Mueller report to a conversation between the president's lawyer and a lawyer for Michael Flynn was totally misrepresented in the report. It didn't give the full context. It made it seem like they were conspiring to prevent information from getting out when that isn't at all what happened. So the way this report was put together kind of reflected the bias of the people working for Mr. Mueller.
Well, and don't forget, his initial team included Strzok, Page, McCabe, the very people who we're now learning were the instigators of this hoax.
I have to say, forgive me, but I have to say that when these messages between Strzok and Lisa Page were discovered, he was immediately taken off the committee by Mr. Mueller.
Yes, correct, but only after they were discovered. All of these partisans, hyper-partisans, were deliberately selected for this investigative team. Every member of that team who made political contributions contributed to Clinton and the Democrats. Andrew Weissman was the head of the team, was actually at the Clinton victory celebration in 2016 that turned a little sour at the end. And even so, with that amount of bias, with these pre-dawn SWAT raids on individuals, threatening people's relatives, setting perjury traps, after all that, they could not make a case for collusion, and the only case they can even suggest for obstruction is based on the president blowing off steam behind closed doors that amounted to absolutely nothing.
Well, and then there's a larger question here, which is Mr. Mueller's description of the way our system of justice works. Let me just play a little soundbite from his testimony, or from his statement this week, and get your reaction.
If we had confidence that the president clearly did not commit a crime, we would have said so. We did not, however, make a determination as to whether the president did commit a crime.
Now, some people say that's turning our standard of jurisprudence on its head. That is, we're all guilty until proven innocent.
Yeah, and a prosecutor's job is not to exonerate people. A prosecutor's job is to assemble a case. That is what he was specifically instructed to do. If there's a case for collusion, if there's a case for obstruction, you make a prosecutorial recommendation. He didn't do that because he couldn't do that. There is no case. And now he's coming back, dropping little innuendos and saying, oh, by the way, don't question me. Well, I'm sorry, the process doesn't work that way. He's accountable for this investigation. The fact that he had showed absolutely no interest in the genesis of this hoax, the fact that that officials at the highest levels of the Justice Department, the FBI, our intelligence agencies were actually colluding to develop and foist this hoax on the American people. You know, there were two governments that were interfering in the 2016 election. There was the Russian government, but there was also the Obama administration.
Well, we're going to get a lot of. We are going to get a lot of information about. Maybe Mr. Mueller didn't do enough diligence on that side of the story, but we're going to have an IG report coming out. Mr. Uber's coming out, and of course, Mr. Barr is going to be coming out with his own report. I just want to ask you about your committee, though, which is now headed by Jerry Nadler. Jerry Nadler spoke right after Mr. Mueller spoke. Yeah. It was a written statement that he didn't seem to be familiar with. He kind of flubbed some of what he was reading, but it did seem he was asked a specific question about whether he would subpoena Mr. Mueller to come before the committee, and he seemed kind of afraid to answer. He did not answer it directly. He went back to his written statement. I'm just wondering if he's afraid that people like you will ask Mr. Mueller questions that Mr. Mueller can't answer well.
Well, I want Mueller to testify before Congress. He's accountable for the conduct of his investigation. I'd like to know why he ignored the genesis of this hoax. I'd like to know why he appointed this highly partisan team of investigators. I'd like to know how long it took for them actually to realize there was no case for a collusion and why that wasn't made immediately known to the American people. After all, this hoax has not only did they use it to try to interfere with the 2016 presidential election. When they failed to do that, they've been using it for the last 2 years to undermine the constitutionally elected president of the United States. That's big stuff. And the fact that he was charged with investigating all that and didn't, I think he's got a lot of questions to answer.
All right, we have to go, so it's literally got to be a 5-second answer. But the bottom line is, if Jerry Nadler is listening to you right now, you want him to subpoena Mr. Mueller.
Very much, and it's his responsibility to do so, and it's something that he's been promising to do, so let's do it.
Tom McClintock, good to see you.